Welcome to episode 10 of America in Crisis, Breaking the Cycle of Addiction. My name is David Hunt and I am your host. I'm honored to have State Representative Richard Haggerty as my special guest today. Richard represents the 30th Middlesex District in Massachusetts. Rich served as Woburn's longest serving city council president from 2014 to 2019 and has been 5 times elected as alderman at large for the city of Woburn. During his tenure with the City Council, Richard served as the Public Safety Committee Chairman, Accounts and Audits Committee Chairman, and has been a member of the Finance Committee, Ordinance Committee, Special Permits Committee, Liaison to Recreation Committee, and Liaison to the Green Communities Initiatives. Respectively, Richard got his education at the University of New Hampshire. Richard, welcome to our show.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here, David. I appreciate you bringing me in.
I've known you for many years serving Woburn. Tell us how this opioid crisis has impacted our city.
So I can tell you, since my first being elected, this has become more and more of a large issue in our community. Being kind of one of the younger members of the City Council back when I was initially elected, and even today in some ways in my capacity, I'm one of the younger members. I know firsthand that this has been a crisis that has impacted my generation especially. It doesn't discriminate. We know that it doesn't pick old or young or rich or poor or white or black or anything else. But at the end of the day, to have the opportunity to see where this how this issue has grown the last decade is certainly frightening in some ways. The good news is that we've taken a lot of positive steps to try to address it and try to really combat it. And that's from the lowest level, perhaps, in our community, right up to our federal government taking steps to address this. Our school committee has taken a lot of positive steps to address this from an education standpoint of view and getting speakers into our high schools and our middle schools. City Council has made a bunch of efforts over the course of the last several years to address this as well. And of course, our mayor has taken quite a bit of steps as well. So it's been kind of a collaborative effort, if you will.
I can see that between Vinnie Pirro with the court system, with heat,
yeah,
and with Rick Jolly, our drug enforcement officer for Woburn, and all the other programs that are on there. Yeah. How have you seen this grow and impact Woburn? Let's go back to your Woburn days.
Yeah, so
let's look back a little bit.
Yeah, I would say, one of the big steps we took that I was proud to support, and the mayor had the the guts to send down an appropriation to the City Council to create the role that Rick Jolly's in now, which is essentially our substance abuse coordinator position. That person is really kind of at the helm of the community's effort to really combat this issue and provide the tools and the resources to families and to those dealing with this addiction so that they can get the services they need, be it treatment or walking them through the court system or housing, education, all the kind of the variety of services those folks need. So that was one big step we took, I think, and that was in kind of in a positive direction.
Now, recently we've had former State Rep Jim Dwyer on. It was an excellent guest. He shared with us what the state is doing.
Yeah.
What are some of the things the state is working on to try to combat this issue? And you can take as long as you want on this.
Sure. Yeah. You mentioned heat, and I just do want to go back. I know that guys like Mike Higgins and Vinnie Pirro and all these guys down at the Woburn District Court, they were really ahead of the curve in this issue. And they spent a lot of time, way before a lot of other folks did, really combating this problem and making sure that people were aware of what was going on out there and the challenges and difficulties people were facing. With regards to what the state's been doing, I give the governor a lot of credit. When he ran in 2014, Charlie Baker put this front and center as a major issue of his campaign. And I can tell you that at that time, even I felt that it hadn't had anywhere near the type of coverage that it should have had, be it locally, statewide, or nationally. But that really pushed it to the forefront. And from that moment forward, I think that the state took a lot of positive efforts and steps to try to combat the issue. Specifically, I would say the prescription monitoring program was a big step in the right direction. The PMP was passed, I think, in October 2015.
Absolutely.
And essentially what it does is it requires doctors and those prescribing opiates or have the ability to prescribe opiates to actually go in and check to make sure that the person who's getting them should be getting them, et cetera. And the PMP, it helped doctors understand if people were out there doctor shopping and things like that.
Exactly.
And it was a great tool for a lot of folks and a good resource for doctors especially.
And they also understand everything now's got to become electronic prescription. Can you share with us what the difference is between paper and electronic?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is that it allows it to go into a system so that people can check to see if people are out there shopping around for prescriptions. It allows the data to be collected by the Attorney General's office and others. If the AG's office is out there, looking into a specific doctor, seeing if that individual is out there either selling prescriptions or doing something that they shouldn't be doing, they've got all that data on hand, and they have a better tool, if you will, to be able to complete their investigations. We've got folks right here in Woburn who work in the AG's office who are doing that type of work, and I can tell you they're making a real impact to make sure that people who are out there doing things that they shouldn't be doing with regards to prescribing are caught and fully brought through the court process.
Now, you understand it's a lot harder to fake a digital record going in electronically than it is a piece of paper that can be forged, copied 100 times.
No doubt.
Or just totally.
No doubt.
What are some of the things in detail that the legislature is working on now that's trying to introduce? Any particular bills that are trying to combat the opioid problems? I know there's so many of them.
Yeah, there are.
What are your favorite ones?
One of my favorite ones. I mean, Representative Cronin has a good bill out right now that would adjust the PMP program, the prescription monitoring program, which essentially would allow people who have a prescription for opiates or have a problem to actually sign on when they go into treatment to release that medical data, so that the next time they go through this process, next time they have the, they may be prone, if you will, to have a slip, that if they go to a doctor, that doctor can then see the information and be more aware and not actually prescribe, for that individual. So that's one, I think, good piece of legislation. Another piece of legislation that I filed, which I told people during the campaign I was going to file, was again another kind of a way to modernize our PMP program, which would actually penalize doctors for not checking the PMP program. So right now, the way it was written, essentially they're supposed to check it, but there's no real penalty if they don't. My feeling was the problem has become so severe that we should be actually penalizing people if in fact they are not checking it. And it's pretty straightforward to do. We should just require a doctor should have to go into the system and check off saying that they've looked at it to see if this individual has a propensity to abuse, prescription drugs. It's pretty common sense stuff, but when it was written, I know there was some pushback at the time, but for me, I think it's a big part of moving forward of something we should be looking at.
Now, everybody says that things take so long to take place. They always know how to criticize. Oh, yeah, it takes 8 years to get a man on the moon, but 10 years to get a bridge permit to fix the bridge.
Yeah.
How is this being fast-tracked through?
Yeah, well, I think that all these things do take some time, but you want to do it carefully to make sure that you don't have to come back and do it over again, or you want to make sure that you don't have some things that you don't want to happen if in fact you pass something. That's always the concern, even at the local level that I had, where we were in a situation where we wanted to do something, but we said, geez, let's take a kind of wait and see approach on this, make sure we do it the right way, so that way there's not kind of these things that you don't want to see happen that might come along with it.
We're going to take a look at our chart up here. This chart was provided by Middlesex District Attorney Marion Ryan. She started the opioid task force in Middlesex County. And we're showing we have 65 deaths so far in Middlesex County alone up until May 13th. While this is a drop in Middlesex, thanks to all the hard work Marion and the task force has been doing with the police chiefs, the fire chiefs, all the EMS providers, 65 is still 65 people that have died. How do you feel these numbers are affecting in the state across the Commonwealth? I know Middlesex is doing pretty good, but the other ones are a lot worse with a lot more numbers.
Sure. I think we kind of saw, it hit the peak of the mountain, if you will, back a couple of years ago, and they're coming down slightly right now with regards to overdose deaths. But it's still a major issue because really what's happening now is we're keeping people alive longer. That's really what's changing. Because of the fact that NotCan is so much more available to our first responders. NotCan's available in many, places you wouldn't think of it. Whether it's high schools, whether it's, senior centers. Many public buildings today have have purposely put this effort inside of their buildings to make sure we keep people alive if in fact they have an overdose situation. For me, anyways, that when you look at the numbers, you have to realize that we're keeping more people alive. But we still have a major problem with regards to the actual addiction problem.
Well, my last guest was Chief Anthony Colley of the Everett Fire Department. He was mentioning that they have at the police, the fire, everybody has NotCan on their units. And we had so far one overdose death so far in the Commonwealth, in his city this year, not the Commonwealth. In his city, one overdose death, which is amazing. And His answer was because they have people trained. They have NotCan where it's available. All their first responders carry it. And a lot of the citizens in the community carries NotCan.
Yeah.
If you're having a problem with someone in your family, you can go to Walgreens, Walmart, CVS, get NotCan. So if you know there's someone in your family, that's available that you could administer before the help arrives.
Absolutely.
And that's just such an important first step. Remember, I'm an EMT. If there's an emergency and you stop breathing, we basically have 4 to 6 minutes until you're brain dead. They've got to find the person to begin with. If you drop in front of someone right now, if you were to drop in the studio, I can start working right now, but I've got time. But if I don't find you, a lot of the children that die, the kids that die of it, their moms, they're upstairs in the bedroom, mom's downstairs watching TV. She doesn't find her kids, so she goes up to check on them because they figure nothing's gonna happen. I'm home with mom, nothing's gonna happen. They've got to find you. If you're at the mall and you overdose in the men's room, somebody has to find you. Make the phone call, get EMS on its way. People do get a little more comfortable. Oh yeah, the NotCan's gonna fall out of the sky is my favorite expression. If someone doesn't find you first and administer that NotCan, the EMT is not gonna have anything to work with. Again, after 4 to 6 minutes, you've got brain damage or you're clinically dead. And people just take this for granted that this NotCan is gonna fall out of the sky and be available. They just, like the other fire chief said, they're not taking into consideration before I shoot up where's the nearest NotCan, and that's unfortunate. That's just not something they think about. They just figure, okay, somebody would get here to me, and they're not planning on overdosing anyway. That's the other thing. When they shoot up and take their fix, they're not thinking, I'm going to die from this. That's the furthest thing from their mind. They're just getting their fix to make them feel good. And that's why everybody that's basically using drugs needs to be educated that this stuff can kill you. Look at the risk factors.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that even with our first responders. I mean, the fact that they are spending so much time dealing with this issue that it's amazing that the number of people who they're actually saving on a regular basis because of the fact that they have the resources they need available in order to keep people alive, and that's why we're seeing the numbers, I think, actually drop.
And these classes are available everywhere. I see it being advertised either through Red Cross, the fire stations, the cities. A lot of companies are sponsoring this at no cost to the public to go in, get some NotCan training, get available how to get your prescription so you can get your NotCan. There are other organizations that teach it. I mean, it's available to the public and everybody. If you have a child that's school age or someone in the family that's using, this training is available so you can save their life. Don't rely on the police, the fire department to get there on time. You've got to do your job, and your step is an intervention to get that person breathing again, to let the fire department and the ambulance have something to work with.
Yeah, David, I know you asked, and I just want to go back a little bit on on what the state's doing. So last week I was fortunate to be able to join Chief Justice Ralph Gantz, from Massachusetts Supreme Court. He came out to Woburn to open the Community Correction Center over in Cummings Park. And what the Community Correction Center really is a tool for the probation department to use in the courts to be able to actually give folks who are coming in who may have been picked up on a possession charge or something like that, to give these folks the opportunity to get the treatment they need, to provide perhaps some education, explain to them how maybe a GED process works, provide some counseling, encourage them, and provide some tools with regards to employment training. So they're trying to really kind of to provide all the wraparound services that are so important to these individuals when they're at that most vulnerable moment in their lives, when they find themselves in front of a court. Last year during CJ reform, criminal justice reform, the legislature actually allowed the community correction centers to be utilized on a pretrial basis, which has been a shift in policy, which is a good thing, because basically what it means is that once somebody gets in trouble, they have the opportunity to go to, in accordance with the court directing them to the community correction center and actually get the care they need. And these types of things these types of centers, I should say, are a different way we're looking at things. We're not looking at things the way we were 20 years ago, because we know today that addiction is in many cases a medical situation. It's not something to be looked down upon. We know that we want to make sure that we are really providing the care that these individuals need to get them healthy and get them to become back more productive members of society.
And is this the same term as the drug court that I understand are opening up 6 of them across the Commonwealth? Middlesex County is going to be getting one shortly?
Yeah, it's similar, but it's different. But a similar thought process where we need to think about addiction differently, right? We want to stop the stigma. We want to have people talk about mental illness, and addiction, in a way that really gives people the comfort to know that, look, at there's services out there. We're not looking to put you behind bars forever. That's not a solution. The solution is to give you the care you need to get healthy, and to give you the resources you need to become more productive members of society and to reintegrate you back into a normal way of life.
Which is like Gloucester's Angel program.
Absolutely.
I understand now you can walk in almost any police station with a usable amount on you and say, listen, I need help somewhere. You can walk into Woburn right now. I need help. I'm a user. What can you do to help me? I don't know where to go. Instead of slapping handcuffs on you, they're going to give you the treatment, get you into a facility, and help you do that. I mean, if you go in with a trunk full of fentanyl, that might be another story. But if you have recreational amount on, you said, I need some help, I don't know where to go to, and my parents don't know. I'm sure Woburn Police, Fire, wherever you go, has programs lined up that they will do everything they can to refer you to somebody and get you the treatment that you need. Now, we're just talking, I just brought up fentanyl. I understand last week they just found 7 pounds of fentanyl in a parking lot on a vehicle. 7 pounds of fentanyl. Can you explain in detail what will that do to somebody? If you were to release 7 pounds in a mushroom cloud, what would that do to the city of Woburn?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously incredibly dangerous. I mean, you know, people, it's not the heroin of 40 years ago any longer. Fentanyl is now something that has made everything dramatically more potent and has the ability to kill people, even in some cases with just the touch of it on your skin. It's that dangerous in some cases, depending upon how potent it can be. So, you know, I know you mentioned, you know, the idea of people selling this type of stuff. I can tell you that, you know, as part of CJ reform last year, the legislature did change, in fact, and put more strict mandatory minimums in place for somebody selling fentanyl. You know, typically you look at these situations and either somebody's, you know, charged with possession, charged with sales, or charged with trafficking. And certainly the instance that you've you know, given as an example here is a situation where somebody was clearly trafficking fentanyl, and you know, they'll be looking at probably close to 20 years anyways, going away. And that's what we should be doing, aggressively attacking, obviously, the people who are selling these things and the folks who are bringing them into our communities, into our country. And then on the flip side, obviously people who are addicted, we want to make sure that we're providing them the care they need to get them clean and to get them back to become productive members of society. So it's, in some ways, it's two paths that we need to be constantly looking at and constantly encouraging.
I sort of feel sorry for our first responders because I've had everybody on the show has downplayed this, that they're trained for it, they've had the training. But when a police officer goes up to make a traffic stop and he just touches the person's shoulder, he doesn't know if that person's using. If these get fentanyl on them, that officer, and this has happened in different states, that the officer has gone down. The suspect actually got on the police radio and called and said, your officer's on the ground. I think he got exposed, which was great that the guy did this for the cop. Thank God he did this. But it's a horrible thing. You get police and fire going to a crash, an EMT going to a crash, and what we think is dust from an airbag, you don't know if they've got fentanyl, what the drug is, and this stuff will kill somebody. And yes, I know the police have gloves and they have their masks, but they're not wearing these when they come and do their traffic stop. They're not suiting up. I know if they find a car full of fentanyl and said, okay, now we're gonna get the hazmat team in, that's been identified. But until they identify that problem, and you're patting down a suspect, you're touching him, you don't know what you're touching, what's on his clothing. And that's a concern. I mean, as an EMT, and I know other first responders, and again, the police are going to downplay this, that's what we're trained for, but these people are human. They want to go home tonight to their families. They don't deserve to go out there to do a traffic stop and have this a life or death matter, wondering what's on the person's clothing when they do a stop. And that's something that should be addressed. That's something that every officer should worry about, is am I going to go home and see my family tonight because this guy has drugs all over his body or on the car seat or wherever.
Yep.
Now, I understand a couple of months ago, the Polito-Baker administration released $219 million to be released over the next 5 years to combat the opioid problem. Can you explain where does this money come from, and specifically, where is it being used, and what type of programs can we look forward to?
Sure. Well, as far as I know, you know, it's coming from the general fund.
Okay.
You know, it's part of a pure appropriation process through the legislature to the executive and then out to the different departments. In this case, I'm guessing DPH, the Department of Public Health. You know, the DPH announced just about 60 days ago of the creation of 400 new long-term beds. And that's been something we've really been, you know, pushing for, and something that, you know, from the local community standpoint of view, we know is critical. You know, when somebody's looking for care, when somebody has an overdose, or they finally get to a point where they need to, you know, when they approach their family, wherever the case may be, they actually are going to, you know, come forward and get the care they need. We know that they need that help immediately. We know that we can't have them wait around for 72 hours or a week and say, well, geez, you know, there'll be a bed or a treatment facility sometime mid next week. That's not how it works. We know that we need to have more long-term care beds so that when somebody's looking for help, they can get it. And that's one of the things I think that those dollars are going to be utilized for. Again, 400 new beds across the entire Commonwealth, which will go a long way towards at least creating a situation where folks who need care can get it more immediately.
Absolutely. Are there any programs that you'd like to share with us that people you'd recommend out to people, different organizations, or someplace that they could go? If I came to you right now, so Rich, I need some help.
Yeah.
Where could you send me?
I think the first step would be to Rick Jolly. I think Rick Jolly is doing a terrific job in the city of Woburn right now, providing really as a resource to a lot of families. And you're not going to probably read about it on the front page of the paper or those types of things, but Rick is somebody who's out there providing direction and care to people who really need it. A lot of folks don't know where to go for help. They don't know where or how to get a treatment bed. All of a sudden they find a situation where a loved one is addicted to opiates. They're dealing with that in that first moment. They don't know where to get help or where to go out and get a treatment bed or where to become educated on it. Rick is one of those resources that the city of Woburn has to be able to actually say, hey, look, here's where you go, here's the help that's available to you across the Commonwealth or in the city of Woburn, to be able to hopefully begin the process of getting that person kind of back on their feet and most important, the care they need from a treatment standpoint of view.
Speaking of Rick runs what's called Boot Camp for a Cause. This happens, I believe, every September in the city of Woburn. It's been held at the Boys Club the last few years, and the Woburn Host Lions. They've come down and had a nice barbecue for everybody. But there's programs. It says, you have a nice little workout provided by Freddie Life Fitness. Freddie Gonzalez comes down. He helps out, tells his story. But it's basically an alternative where you can go. If you've got something to do on a Friday night, such as exercise or a gym or a workout versus going out, getting high with your friends, people would choose the first one. People are like, I want something constructive, but I just don't have anything to do. When you make things available in programs to people, and again, I've also recommended the Boys and Girls Club. That's someplace healthy to go after school instead of hanging around the house when both parents work. The kid is bored. He's either going to hang out with his friends, maybe getting in trouble, hopefully just playing video games. But you've got such a healthy resource as a local boys club. I know Julie Gage down in Woburn does a tremendous job. There's a nice, beautiful club down there. We've had the Stoneham/Wakefield Boys Club. And on one of my shows, it was Katie and Adam. They do a fantastic job. They have a nice facility. But they're giving alternatives. There's so many programs. And back to Rick Jolly, this Boot Camp for a Cause. I encourage people watching the show, come down, check out the boot camp, see what's available for your kids. You don't know what the kids are getting into. You want some information about drugs, this is a good place to get it, nice and quietly and discreetly. Pick up a pamphlet and see what's available. I mean, we know we have Leahy Health, which is now Beth Israel. Leahy's come down before. They have a booth down there showing programs that are available. They're one of the sponsors. Again, the Lions Club, they have a delicious barbecue. I know the Woburn Medical Reserve Corps is part of it. And it's just a great thing for everybody that happens every September. It'll be on the bulletin board of the station and in the Woburn Times Chronicle, which does an amazing job of posting things for people of events coming up. Now, let's talk about what do you feel about needles and HIV? We got people that are for it, people are against it. Do you believe they should be giving out needles because of the spread of HIV? We know users are sharing. Yeah. I want to give you a quick story before Rich answers. Yeah. I heard from a police chief, and he was talking in one of my training classes. We have somebody that's addicted, and he said to him, he goes, I need a needle. And he turned around and said, I have HIV. He goes, I don't care. I need a needle. I need my fix. And in the old days, I'm going to bring things up. It might be sensitive. In the old days, we pictured the heroin user under the bridge. Nowadays, anybody can be addicted. These people have an addiction problem. They were introduced to something, especially now with drugs and cannabinoids and gummy bears and things that can get into food you don't even know people are sharing them with you. But my heart goes out to the construction worker or the person that got hurt and injured on a job, and they cut off his treatment, and now he needs to get treatment. And nowadays, anybody you see can be a drug user, whether he wanted to be or not. And it doesn't make sense stereotyping people, calling them names. They have problems. This is someone that needs help. And my heart goes out to the person that needs a needle so bad, he doesn't care that that man was HIV infected, which now that question over to Rich. What do you think about a needle exchange?
So, I know that we do have locations in the Commonwealth today that provide clean needles, and you're able to, get rid of old needles, which again, I understand the logic on that, particularly from a health perspective with regards to, stopping the spread of HIV, hepatitis C, a lot of these types of dangerous, diagnosis that a lot of folks end up having to deal with. So I understand that fully. I know you're going to ask me in a second, perhaps, about whether or not we should have clean injection facilities, and I think that's probably a different conversation to have.
Okay. I know that in Canada they have what's called the clean injections, Rich mentioned, and there's pros and there's cons. Canada likes it because it's getting the people off the street to shoot up in an environment that's safe. But they don't give them much treatment option. They just go here and then they're off, and it's a crapshoot. Bottom line, people say, no, you're just encouraging people to come in with a place to use and not get treatment. That's up in the air right now. Until it gets looked into further, anybody's going to have an opinion. Some people are for it, some people are against it. There are great arguments on both sides of the coin, why you should have it, why you shouldn't. So that's something that needs to be looked into with the legislature and the health department and everything else. Let's start, how did this mess start?
Yeah.
How did it start, Rich? What is the state doing? I understand people said, okay, it's overprescribed.
Yeah.
It never should have been. They were behind it all along. What can you share?
Well, let me answer the question with regards to legal injection sites is something that was definitely a hot topic, and I just want to kind of weigh in a little bit on that.
Please, absolutely, I love your opinion.
Yeah, that I'm not in favor of it, is the short answer.
Okay.
And I'm not in favor for many of the reasons that you described, specifically the fact that they don't provide a treatment path for a lot of individuals. And we don't have the data be it from Canada or Australia or some of these other locations that are actually doing this. Portugal is another one that has these legal injection facilities. They don't have the data available to really show that people are transitioning back to healthier lives. It shows they're keeping them alive better, but as you described the NotCan situation earlier, it's easy to understand that people are staying alive longer because they're injecting at a facility that actually has caretakers and NotCan on site. So you can understand that. But there's really no data right now, in my opinion, that would show that there's a path to treatment and a long-term path to a better quality of life, and most importantly, to a situation where they're no longer addicted. So for me, I'm not in favor of them. And there's a lot of reasons. Some of the things I just mentioned. Another reason I think that people talk about is the geography. Nobody's going to drive 20 minutes to go to use.
Yes.
That's not going to happen. Now, if you're in downtown Boston and somebody's around a corner from somewhere, they might walk down a flight of stairs and go around the bend and go into an injection facility. They may do that, but but they're not going to go ahead and drive from Woburn to Reading or from Woburn to somewhere else to go find an injection facility. It's just not going to happen. So the geography of where these locations would be, where these facilities would be located, is another part of the reason why I'm generally opposed to it, at least at this point in this juncture. So
another thing that should be looked into a little more carefully on the same subject is if they're going to shoot up and have their fix, they think, okay, here's the place I can go and get high. That's it. They know it's there, it's clean, it's available to them, but nobody's treating them. So it's like, okay, I can go in, get a cup of coffee. There's no difference to the user at the end. Okay, it's a safe site. I know the NotCan's available. Instead of treating him, maybe if they considered, okay, we'll give you your fix, but we want to get you enrolled into a class. If we're going to do this for you and let you shoot up today and have the NotCan available today, we want to treat you on site. Maybe that's something they should consider if you come into one of these sites, if they have them. Get you right into a program. Yeah, I'll give you your fix now, but it comes with a cost. We want to treat you so you don't have to keep coming back here.
Yeah, I'd rather have a treatment center on every corner than a legal injection site.
What about the safety aspect? You have someone now that just got high and now he's driving back in his car, driving out of there, and he's shot up on drugs, and he's obviously not in his right mind, or he's under the influence, and now you just let a person out.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. And I know you briefly touched on kind of how we got here. And I know that I'm sure everybody gives you kind of the spiel of the last 20 years, really. Federal law was changed around 1999 that allowed for folks and doctors to begin the process of prescribing opiates for reasons that they once couldn't. Essentially, it allowed folks to be able to prescribe opiates for pain management that did not qualify prior to that. And that started us down this slippery slope of people becoming addicted. And it was OxyContin, it was Percocet, and things like that. And then people transitioning from that onto, of course, heroin. They all of a sudden found themselves addicted after getting a knee operation or getting a shoulder operation, and then quickly thereafter found themselves in a situation where they had needed their fix.
So they had to self-medicate because they lost their treatment.
That's correct.
What is the state doing against these companies that started this mess?
Yeah, the Attorney General's office, is suing Purdue Pharma now. I know the governor's office is aggressively in favor of that. I know there was a joint press conference between the governor and the Attorney General's office when that effort launched to make sure that Purdue Pharma is held responsible for some of the things that they clearly knew about. They knew that they were pushing these things onto communities and onto doctors to prescribe. And they knew what the results were. It wasn't like they did this for a year or so and said, geez, how's this going? They were making money hand over fist while they were basically creating a situation where a lot of young people in America, at least at that point especially, were becoming addicted. And today we're dealing with the aftermath
of the mess.
So I totally support the efforts by the Attorney General's office and the governor's office to hold Purdue Pharma accountable for some of the things that they've done over the course of the last 2 decades to create this mess.
Do you have any final words for our guests and our viewers?
I guess for me, I would say that if my office, can be of assistance to anybody who's looking for, a long-term bed or looking for somebody in our community, be it Woburn or Reading, who may need, some education assistance, may need some employment assistance, might need some help, connecting with the community correction center or the drug courts, anything like that my office can do to kind of bridge that gap. We're very pleased to provide that assistance. I know how challenging it is. As a younger person, I understand and know people in my own life who are dealing with this challenge. Addiction continues to confront us in a lot of different ways, but I can tell you that from my perspective, I'm going to do everything I can to hopefully stop the stigma around addiction and make sure we take every step possible to really begin the process, or continue the process, I should say, of solving this problem once and for all.
Okay. I would like to thank today's special guest, State Representative Richard Haggerty, for appearing today. I'm sure that under Richard's leadership as State Representative, our district, like Woburn, will be a much better place, and I wish him many successful years. For further information on Commonwealth's response to the opioid epidemic, as well as to links to the latest data, visit www.mass.gov/opioid response. That'll be at the bottom of your screen. To get help for a substance abuse disorder, visit www.helpinma.org or call the Massachusetts Substance Helpline, and that's toll-free 1-800-327-5050, which will also appear at the bottom of your screen. The show can be seen on YouTube and on Woburn Public Media's website, along with Woburn's local access channels on a rotation. Please share this program with somebody that needs help and the link with your social media. New episodes come out monthly. For America in Crisis, Breaking the Cycle of Addiction, my name is David Hunt, and thank you so much for watching, and thank you very much to our wonderful staff at Woburn Public Media for making this presentation possible.